She sighed when I asked how her day was. Not a big sigh, just a small, theatrical exhale, like my question had violated some invisible code of modern emotional oppression. Her fork scraped against her plate. She didn't answer. Just stared down and kept eating like I hadn't spoken at all. It wasn't new. That kind of silence had become normal between us. Not peaceful silence. Not tired silence. The kind of silence that wrapped around my throat like a slow choke every time I tried to speak. I said nothing else. I'd learned the cost. Every opinion, every casual observation, every joke had started coming back to me labeled toxic, or problematic, or invalidating. I couldn't even say I missed the way she used to laugh without her dissecting it into some kind of emotional burden I was placing on her. So that night, I gave her what she claimed to want: total silence. She didn't thank me for it. I finished dinner and loaded the dishwasher. She disappeared upstairs without a word. I heard the faint clack of her laptop lid, then a YouTube video. Some relationship coach or healing energy influencer, probably. I poured a drink and sat on the couch, letting the silence grow thick around me. If this was what peace looked like in her eyes, it was suffocating. We hadn't fought in over a month, not really. But the absence of fighting felt more like the aftermath of a storm than a calm. She didn't roll her eyes as much anymore. She didn't criticize my coffee, or correct my phrasing, or point out every perceived flaw in the way I stacked the towels. She just stopped talking. And I think that was her final move. Not yelling, not crying, just vanishing, inch by inch, behind her own silence. And yet I still made excuses. Told myself maybe she was tired. Maybe work was draining her. Maybe I had actually said something wrong I couldn't remember. That need, to believe I was the problem, was a habit I hadn't broken yet, until the Lyft receipt. It came in through our shared credit card email. I saw it while deleting spam late that night, just before I shut off my phone. $37.86, Tuesday afternoon. Pick up from our house. Drop off at a location I didn't recognize. She told me she was working from home that day. Said she had back-to-back Zoom meetings. So why did she need a ride across town? I stared at the screen for a long time. Not furious. Not even panicked. Just focused. Like something had clicked loose in a machine I thought I'd built to last. I didn't ask her about it right away. Not because I was afraid of her answer, but because I wanted to be sure. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of labeling my suspicion as controlling or insecure. If she was hiding something, I would find it the way I'd done everything else in my life, quietly, precisely, and with full control. I turned off the phone, walked upstairs, and climbed into bed beside her. She didn't look up from her screen. I closed my eyes and matched her silence. But in my head, I was already making a list. I waited 3 days before mentioning the Lyft ride. It wasn't easy. Every casual conversation between us felt like a knife held at my side. One wrong word and she'd call it an attack. But I played it patient, strategic. We were in the kitchen, both standing at the island. She was chopping vegetables for a salad, her new, clean eating reset phase, and scrolling her phone between slices. I kept my voice light. You head out on Tuesday? I asked casually. She didn't look up. What? Saw a charge for a Lyft. Around 2. Thought you were working from home? She paused a beat too long. Not a shocked pause, a calculating one. Then she shrugged and went back to slicing. Oh, yeah. I ordered one for Tasha. Her car broke down. Tasha, her coworker. Convenient. Vague. Just plausible enough to nod along with. I acted like I believed her. You're a good friend, I said, smiling. She returned the smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. That was the moment I stopped giving her the benefit of the doubt. It wasn't the answer itself, it was how easily it came. Too smooth. Like she'd practiced it. Like the lie was rehearsed. That night, I sat in the garage with the door half cracked open, the cold air rolling in like a tide. I opened my laptop and began searching. Not her name, not how to tell if your wife is cheating. I wasn't that blunt. I searched for cloud backup methods, phone mirroring software, encrypted message behavior, cross-device sync patterns. The next morning, I offered to update her phone's software. Told her I noticed a bug on my model and didn't want her to lose any photos. She handed it over without question. Habit, probably. I made a clone using third-party software. Backed it all up. Set the cloud sync to mirror my private drive. I handed it back 10 minutes later and made us both coffee. She never noticed. Over the next 2 weeks, the messages started coming in. Not all of them. Most of her real conversations were happening on WhatsApp and Signal, apps that promise privacy. But notifications still leaked through, and they were enough. T wasn't Tasha. T had a name I recognized, Trevor. A junior exec from her office, recently divorced, barely 30. She'd mentioned him once over dinner last year, describing him as so full of himself it's pathetic. Apparently, pathetic had grown on her. I watched the messages come in like a slow leak in a ceiling. Not explicit, not direct, but intimate. Too frequent, too familiar. Inside jokes. Calendar coordination. One even read. Tuesday still good? I checked the address from the Lyft receipt. A cafe halfway across the city. Private. Small. 5-star pastries. Zero chance of running into anyone we knew. She was careful. I'll give her that. No photos. No love notes. Just breadcrumb communication that, without context, she could defend. But I wasn't just collecting messages. I was building a timeline. By the end of the week, I had enough to map her movements for most of the month. I checked her car logs. Our SUV had built-in location history. She hadn't thought to disable it. 4 Tuesday meetings at that same cafe. Always around 2 p.m., always alone. Meanwhile, at home, she was sleeping beside me like nothing was wrong, kissing me goodnight with that same thin-lipped smile. We even hosted friends the weekend before, and she played the part so convincingly it made me wonder if this woman had ever loved me at all, or if she'd simply loved how I made her life easier. The next night, as she showered upstairs, I sat on the edge of our bed and looked at the photo on the wall. It was taken 2 years earlier, her arms around me, her eyes crinkled from smiling too hard. I remembered that day. We'd argued that morning, something stupid. But by afternoon, we'd made up and driven to the coast. She'd said she couldn't imagine life without me. I stared at her frozen smile and felt something inside me turn. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just a clean click, like a lock disengaging. She couldn't imagine life without me. So she'd started preparing one without telling me. The first time I saw them together, it wasn't intentional. Not exactly. I told her I had an off-site meeting, left early, looped around the city, and parked across from the cafe I'd traced from the Lyft drop. I sat in my car, hood up, sunglasses on, sipping coffee gone cold as I waited. I felt like a cliché, but the stakes were real. She arrived 10 minutes late. He was already there, Trevor. I recognized him immediately from LinkedIn. His smile was as smug in person as it was in his profile picture. They sat at a small table tucked against the window. No touching, no lingering stares, just low voices, shared laughs, and too much ease. The kind of ease you don't get with someone unless the boundaries are already gone. She looked happier than she'd looked at home in months. That part stung more than I wanted to admit. I took photos. Blurry, long-distance ones. I wasn't going to need them yet, but I'd rather have more than enough when the time came. What bothered me wasn't just the betrayal, it was the careful construction of it. She hadn't slipped. She'd planned. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a parallel life running in silence, right beside mine. She came home that night complaining about work stress. Said she was behind on everything, that she'd skipped lunch. I listened quietly and nodded, offering to make her tea. She thanked me like I was a good dog. The next morning, I hired a private investigator. Not because I couldn't do the job myself, but because I needed a second set of eyes. Someone emotionless. Someone who wouldn't flinch if she met Trevor somewhere discreet or stepped outside the lines we used to call vows. While the investigator got to work, I shifted my focus to the financials. I logged into our shared accounts, but I knew she was smarter than to let anything obvious sit there. So I checked her credit report. You'd be surprised what you can find with a little social engineering and the right questions. What I found was a second bank account. Joined only in the legal sense, her name, her transactions, her secret. Opened 6 months ago. Slowly accumulating deposits, mostly small amounts. Then one larger transfer, $9,500, labeled consulting income. Consulting for what? She worked full-time. She hated side gigs. I pulled the account's activity. It was clean, but too clean. I could feel it. This wasn't savings. It was staging. Preparation. I checked her email next. She rarely used her personal one, I thought. But I ran a recovery trace and got access. Password reset from a known device. She never logged out. There were emails to a realtor. Listings in another city. A sleek condo downtown. 1 bedroom. Modern, cold. The kind of place you start over in if you don't plan to take anyone with you. I didn't confront her. Not even when I saw the name. Trevor K. listed as the emergency contact on the rental inquiry. That night, we watched a movie together. She sat beside me under a blanket, head on my shoulder, like nothing had changed. I kept my breathing steady, played my part, but inside, something cracked and calcified. She wasn't just leaving me, she was replacing me. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just rewrote the timeline in my head and made adjustments. The marriage was already dead. The only question left was who got buried with it, and who walked away clean. The private investigator delivered the first report on a Tuesday morning. He met me at a diner 20 minutes out of town. Neutral territory. I paid cash for his time, tipped the waitress extra for privacy, and opened the manila envelope with fingers steadier than they should have been. Inside, time-stamped photos, notes, and a summarized timeline that confirmed what I already knew but hadn't let myself say out loud. They weren't just meeting. They were spending nights together. Hotels too so far. Discreet ones with private access garages and no front desk check-ins. She'd been careful, but he'd been sloppy. His car was registered in his name. Same make, same plates, parked outside both locations. The images cut deeper than I expected. Not because they were graphic, they weren't, but because they were casual, comfortable. Her body language was relaxed around him in a way it hadn't been with me in months, maybe longer. In one photo, he was reaching across the table, touching her wrist. Her eyes were half closed, laughing. The same laugh she used to give me when we were younger, when we still made each other feel like secrets worth keeping. I didn't finish my coffee. I thanked the investigator, took the flash drive, and drove home in silence. When I pulled into the driveway, her car wasn't there. A bonus. I needed the house to myself. I walked into our shared office, technically hers now, since she claimed it as her remote workspace, and opened her desk drawer. I knew what I was looking for. 6 weeks earlier, I'd accidentally knocked over her bag and seen a printed statement from a brokerage account, one I didn't recognize. She'd snatched it up so fast you'd think it was radioactive. I hadn't pushed then. But now I knew. I found it under a stack of fitness subscription mailers, Vanguard brokerage folder. Her name only, opened 9 months ago. Deposit history showed transfers from the secret bank account. She'd built up over $28,000 in what she probably considered an exit fund. She was leaving, not considering it, planning it. But the final twist hit me when I found the envelope tucked behind it. A printed draft of a legal separation agreement. And signed. Timestamped 2 months ago. In it, she claimed emotional distance, a pattern of controlling behavior, and verbal criticism as justifications for sole ownership of our house. No mention of Trevor. No mention of the joint savings we built. Just a preemptive narrative of her as the wounded party, setting the stage for a clean break and clean hands. She wasn't just betraying me. She was preparing to frame me as the villain. I sat on the edge of the bed, the envelope in my hands, and breathed. Deep, slow, measured. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was strategy, reputation, assets. Everything we'd built together now weaponized against me, while she smiled through Sunday brunches like nothing was wrong. The next morning, I went to see a divorce attorney. I'd researched him weeks ago, top-rated, aggressive, discreet. I laid everything on his desk, the bank statements, the photos, the messages, the draft agreement. His only response was a nod. "You did your homework," he said. "She's smart. But not smarter." That night, I made her favorite dinner. Grilled salmon, lemon rice, sautéed greens. We ate in the soft light of the kitchen, the way we used to when things were good. She complimented the meal, smiled across the table, said she'd had a long day. I just smiled back and told her to get some rest. I'd already copied the house deed, moved half our joint funds into a secure account, and started the paperwork to freeze any additional transfers she hadn't thought to hide. I wasn't going to lose everything she'd already stolen once emotionally. Not again. A week passed. She didn't suspect a thing. We moved through the house like polite strangers. Shared meals. Shared space. Even laughter once or twice, though mine was hollow and hers was careful. Her tone was warmer now, ironic, considering the damage already done. Maybe she felt safe again. Maybe the silence she demanded had lulled her into thinking I'd surrendered. She started wearing that perfume again. The one she'd claimed was too strong for work. I remembered it because it was the scent she wore when we first met, sharp, citrus, unmistakable. I'd complimented it once. That was back when my opinions were welcome. Now it smelled like mockery. I stayed methodical. Reviewed the PI's next batch of findings, more photos, time-stamped messages, one disturbing note about a scheduled viewing for the downtown condo she'd been eyeing. This one was official. Signed lease agreement. Move-in date, 33 days away. She wasn't just fantasizing about escape. She had a plan, an address, a future, and I wasn't in it. But the part that finally twisted the knife came on a rainy Thursday evening. I was cleaning out the garage, quietly transferring my tools and valuables to a private storage unit I'd rented under a business entity. She thought I was organizing for a yard sale. I let her believe it. That night, I found her laptop open on the couch. She was in the shower. It was unlocked. I didn't touch anything, didn't need to. An email preview was still up, from Trevor. Subject: finalizing things. Body: let me know once the retainer's paid. Don't want to take any risks. You deserve a clean exit. I'll handle the rest. He was referring to legal representation. Not hers, mine. He'd suggested a firm. A friend of his. She'd paid the retainer for a lawyer she intended to use against me, and Trevor was coordinating. I took a photo of the screen with my phone and closed the laptop gently. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't about love, or desire, or even betrayal anymore. This was a hostile acquisition. She was treating our marriage like a business deal gone sour, and I was the disposable partner. She was trying to script my fall, pre-write the narrative, paint herself as the battered half of a toxic man, all while preparing to cash out clean and land in someone else's apartment with her name untouched. She had planned to leave quietly, take the house, drain the accounts, and trap me in the role of the unreasonable one. So I gave her what she wanted: silence. But I made it a weapon. I began quietly transferring documents, canceling joint authorizations. I pulled the equity reports on the house, had a forensic accountant start auditing our shared funds for any hidden liabilities. I backed up every message, every photo, every transaction, both physical and digital. I even changed the locks on the office filing cabinet while she was out one night with a friend. She didn't notice. Not yet. Then came the final move. I scheduled a meeting with her attorney, Trevor's recommendation, and posed as a potential client. The lawyer didn't recognize me. I asked a few questions, got a sense of the advice she'd been receiving, and politely declined further services. I walked out of that office with her entire legal strategy in my back pocket. That night, she fell asleep beside me with one hand on my chest, as if we were still a team. But my heart didn't race. It didn't ache. It counted down. She was sipping wine when I walked in, curled on the couch with her legs tucked under her, her laptop closed, a candle lit on the coffee table like she was trying to manifest peace. She looked up at me and smiled. I think she believed she was winning. I sat across from her, calm. No raised voice, no accusations, just a man settling an account. I want to talk, I said evenly. Her smile faltered slightly. She straightened, tucking her hair behind her ear like a reflex. Okay, about what? I set the folder on the table. Manila. Clean. Unassuming. She stared at it like it might bark. What's this? She asked, not touching it. Everything, I said. Receipts. Photos. Your consulting deposits. The condo lease. Your emails. Messages with Trevor. I paused. And the separation agreement you drafted while sleeping in my bed. Her face went still. Not guilty. Not surprised. Just still. Like a screen that had frozen mid-scene. A slow, calculated mask dropped over her features. You were spying on me? She said, not looking at the folder. I was protecting myself, I said, from someone trying to turn me into the villain of a story she wrote in private. You weren't planning a conversation. You were planning a coup. She stood slowly, hesitation in every movement, as if she were deciding whether anger or denial might buy her more time. Her voice came sharp, defensive, already halfway to accusation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You've always been paranoid, controlling. I didn't flinch. My voice stayed level, colder than I expected even from myself. Don't. You lost the right to define me the moment you started writing your exit strategy behind my back. Her mouth opened, a quick breath like she meant to protest, but the lie faltered before it formed. I didn't, she began, then paused. Her tone softened, shifting to justification instead of denial. You don't understand. You've been emotionally absent for over a year. You think being in the same room is the same as being present. I didn't flinch. I'd expected this. The pivot. The reframing. She wasn't confessing, she was rebranding. You kissed another man in a public cafe and called it self-care. You paid his lawyer to try to trap me in a legal ambush. And you still think this is about presents? Her expression cracked for just a second. Not remorse, fear. The realization that the game had shifted. That I hadn't come to fight. I'd come to finish. I'm filing tomorrow, I said. You'll be served by noon. The house is under legal review for asset division. I've already secured my accounts. And Trevor's involvement? That's in the record too. Her mouth opened, then closed. A flicker of panic danced behind her eyes. You think people will believe this? She asked finally. I stood, picked up the folder, held it out to her. They won't need to. The evidence doesn't care who people believe. She didn't take it. Just sat there, frozen, as I walked upstairs. I packed one bag. I didn't slam doors. Didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. When I walked out, she followed me to the porch, barefoot, arms crossed like armor. This is a mistake, she said quietly. You're overreacting. I turned to her one last time. No, I said. I'm reacting exactly as you planned. You just didn't expect me to be better at this than you. She said nothing. I got in my car and drove off. I didn't look back. The silence she demanded came crashing in behind me, wide, cold, and irreversible. But this time, it was hers to live in. 3 weeks after I moved out, just when I'd started sleeping through the night again, a certified letter arrived at my office. My assistant dropped it on my desk with a casual, "More legal stuff?" I thought so too, until I opened it. The sender wasn't her lawyer. It was a firm I didn't recognize, a collections attorney. Inside was a notice of default on a private business loan totaling $165,000, co-signed by both of us 6 months prior. Except I'd never seen the paperwork, never agreed, never signed. The signature on the loan was mine, but not in my handwriting. She'd signed my name without permission. Trevor had pitched a boutique tech startup to his inner circle, and she'd bought in with our joint credit capacity, betting on his promises. The startup had collapsed, the investors had vanished. And now, the lender wanted its money, technically from either signer. Which meant me. I didn't feel rage. I felt a colder thing. A mechanical shift, like the last bolt in a bridge giving out. I made one call, to my attorney. Then another, to a forensic document examiner. The signature comparison wasn't even close. She hadn't been careful. She'd counted on my silence, my trust. On me being the kind of man who never questions the woman he's trying to keep. That ended the day I walked out. Now I was the kind of man who defended himself through every legal channel available. Within days, we were locked in a financial war. I froze every joint asset, filed an emergency motion to remove my name from the debt liability, subpoenaed her correspondence with Trevor, her financial records, the fake consulting income. She fought back, tried to claim I'd approved it verbally. But my attorney was better, smarter, colder. Publicly, her life began to fray. Word spread. Friends who once toasted us at dinner parties now backed away quietly. Her HR department was quietly informed of concerning discrepancies in her financial conduct. She wasn't fired, but she was restructured. She moved out of the condo. Trevor didn't move with her. One day she called. I didn't answer. She sent a message. You got what you wanted. I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. What I wanted was peace. What I got was truth. The process dragged for months. Depositions, freezing weather, long hours rebuilding my financial walls. But in the quiet, I rediscovered something I hadn't felt in years: clarity. I moved into a small place on the edge of the city. Simple, clean, no perfume in the air, no half-truths lurking in the drawers. Just me and the sound of my own breathing. I thought silence would haunt me. Instead, it healed me. The betrayal didn't destroy me. It carved out everything false and left behind only what could stand. I didn't rush into anything new. I wasn't ready. But I reconnected with old friends. I picked up things I'd put down: woodworking, distance running, reading without distraction. I rebuilt not to prove anything to anyone else, but because I finally had room to. In the end, she got her silence, but she never understood that silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes, it means you're listening for the truth. And when I finally heard it, I walked away, not broken, just finished.